I never used to wear a t-shirt because I was always scared about my man boobs, my stomach, and my shape wasn't the shape that I wanted it to be. But I didn't know how to do anything about it. Because I didn't know, I didn't have the knowledge, I just thought, well, the way to do it is to starve myself.
So what questions do you ask yourself to drive that growth?
Of course, the first question I ask myself is, what's Akash doing? These are amazing words for financial investment perspective, and maybe we can apply it for health as well. I said, what does security mean to you? And he says two things, really simple. You own your own home and you own your income stream. Who I think I am now versus who I thought I was just even 3 years ago is so different. I think I'm in a place where I can eat anything I want. Crisps, chocolates, ice creams, anything I feel like eating, I will eat. The difference is I don't feel like eating them often. I don't want to put things into my body that are not good for me. I've been away for 3 months and it's been completely, like I'm here and I'm still in a great shape. Health has given me those anchors, those great feelings. It is the basis of my entire life. Health is wealth. 100% believe it. 100% believe it. Health is wealth. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Okay, so Shiv, why is investing so important to you?
I think that is a very deep question. I think it comes down to the roots of where I came from. And I think that for me, investing is much more holy. So we think of investing, we think of financial investing. It's quite synonymous, but actually investing is a much broader, much more general term. I think for me, at least, it covers financial, it covers investing in, we talk about your health. It definitely covers investing in yourself as a person, in growth in general. And I think that I've always been somebody that wants to grow, that wants to do more. If we think about what is our place here on the planet, at the end of the day, we've got to a place where we can enjoy the things that we enjoy. But then after a while, you start scratching a bit further and you go, well, what's the point of this? And for me, it's definitely about going beyond what you can do now. And that all starts by investing.
What does growth mean like to you? You talk about a lot about growth there and investing being a part of growth.
Yeah.
Where does that come from, and what does growth mean to you?
I think I think it's just a case of, in fact, I tell you exactly where it comes from. So, that I started RNT with my ex-business partner, Akash Desai. And he taught me so much principles more than anything else, not specifically about business, but principles. And one of the principles I remember him teaching me about was the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And up to that point, I'd never heard these terms before. And he was saying that, a fixed mindset is you basically accept your situations, you accept your realities. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always going to be. And you're in a box. You stay in the box. That's where it ends. But the growth mindset person thinks, well, where do I want to be? Let me go outside of that box. Let me try and get further. And as soon as I was introduced to that idea, it sort of opened up the box. Ultimately, it opened up the box for me of, well, where can I go? What can I do? And of course, with that, it started this conversation of where do I want to go? What is the purpose of all this? And that's, I think, how I got into the conversation around growth and investment in general.
And do you approach your investing in like, I'm going to invest in one area that I want to grow at a time, and then you focus all in on that, and then you move to another? Or are you always like depositing pennies in effectively the three main buckets, which are health, wealth, and relationships, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think you've done it as well. We've both done the DeMartini method, which is all about your priorities. What are your priorities? What are your values? Is the other way of saying it. And our priorities are probably quite aligned, quite similar, which is health, wealth, and relationships. Not necessarily in that order. And that is therefore where I tend to deposit, like you said, the pennies. Dan Hill talks about what are the three, I know you've interviewed Dan Hill, so he talks about what are the three goals for this year, your personal and your professional objectives. And in my personal objectives, I always try and look at like health, wealth, and relationships, and making every year I sort of say to myself, well, out of the health, wealth, and relationships, every year, every quarter, every month, every week, I think to myself, out of those three, which one needs to be worked on right now? And then that one then comes to the top of the list, and then that one gets worked on. But obviously over the course of a year, I think they all kind of get worked on.
Yeah, I think you can only really have like three priorities at any one time.
Yeah.
And then there's always one competing for the top spot.
There's two that are around the top, but I think that what happens with those is you go deep enough into yourself and you realize that there is only one winner. There's always, I think that competition is competition for your time. competition of your time, like, do I give my time to X or do I give my time to Y? I was just away on holiday last week, and the conversation in my head is, well, do I give my time to to my holiday and myself and my wife, or do I give my time to my business? I wouldn't usually give my time to my business whilst I'm on holiday, but we are at the end of a quarter, but more importantly at the end of the financial year, and more importantly than that, the beginning of the next financial year. So I really wanted to be prepared and be ready for the beginning of the next financial year. So I think that competition is from a time perspective, but when I analyze what's more important, it's really clear what's more important. Inside I know what my values are, and I can see what's more important. I think it's.
You said you have to ask yourself like these big questions inside. What do you personally ask yourself? Because I think I really respect the fact that you live a very intentional life, and I can count on probably one hand how many people I know who actually live a very intentional life by design, and you're one of those.
Yeah.
So what questions do you ask yourself?
Well,
to drive that growth?
Of course, the first question I ask myself is, what's Akash doing? The first question is, who am I? I think that's the fundamental question for me.
Now we're just going deep on.
I know we're going to go deep. But I mean,
go for it.
I don't mean to continue to like drop names, but Kevin Edge, I don't know if you've interviewed him, but you know him, and he introduced me probably about 2.5 years ago to meditation. He says, "Oh, this thing, you might enjoy it." And I started doing it, and I went on a couple of courses and stuff, and I've got deeper with that. But that's helped me to, going back to this idea of there's a box that you're in. It's helped me to break out of that box and start to understand, who am I really? And I don't want to go into it now because my explanation is probably going to be rubbish and no one's going to understand it. But who I think I am now versus who I thought I was just even 3 years ago, even 2.5 years ago, is so different. Then I was. I tell you what, the people that are listening to this will resonate with these. I thought 2.5 years ago, I was a guy that lived in, Northwest London or whatever. I was married and I had these things and I had these parents and I have this business and I have these friends. That's what I thought it was. And then I realized, but those are just things that I have. Like I have a hand, like I have an arm. I'm Shiv. No, that's just a name. That's not who I am inside. My parents are these people. No, that's where I come from. That's who my parents are. But that doesn't mean that's who I am, because actually, who are they? Well, they're some of their parents. So we can go back and back and back in time in history to get back to ultimately, like, the Big Bang, the beginning of the world, and then that's who you find out. That's who I am. Not wanting to go too deep, but that's really made me move on this journey of. So the question is, who am I? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what do I want? And I think that's it. Tony Robbins says that everyone achieves success. They just are not specific enough about what success is. So they just achieve what they think it is. And I remember right now I'm starting a new business called the 100K Club, and it's all about helping people to succeed in business ultimately. And the first thing we've got to do is say, well, what do you want? And obviously the answer is success. I remember when I was there, my answer was success. But then we say, well, what is success? Oh, that's a difficult question. No one's ever asked me that question before. That's what I find when I speak to some of my clients. So we really have to start defining, like, what is success? And one of the easier ways that I find of defining that is to look at people around me and say, well, who do I want to be like? Which of the people around me are inspiring me? And just before we came into this conversation, I was saying to you, you said, are you excited for the podcast? And I said, I'm really excited for the conversation, because I feel like it's my mind is going to get stimulated. I feel like there's going to be, mental stimulation. It's definitely looking at the people that inspire me and saying, well, and again, the other thing as well is, when I say, for example, Akash inspires me, there's a specific part of Akash that inspires me. When I say this person inspires me, there's a specific part. So it's taking all the bits that inspire me, putting them into this one person and saying, well, that's who I am now, which is completely different from anybody else on the entire planet.
There's an exercise that a friend and an old mentor of mine gave me, and he asked me, he's like, what do you really want? And he said, it's a question that's thrown around, but he said, write in your journal, what do you really want? And then I'll write the answer down. The next day, do the same thing. The next day, do the same thing. Do it for 30 days, but never look at what you wrote the day before. And then at the end of the 30 days, look at all the trends that came up, and you'll get your answer there. And that's what you really want out of out of whatever you're trying to
How
achieve.
specific do you go when you do that exercise?
I think you want to go really specific. When I did it, I wanted to go specific with my business, with my relationships, and my health. Like the three
Yeah,
core things I focus on. You know, where do I want to be with my wife and my family? What do I want to achieve with my training, my physical
Can
health?
we get an example of what you mean by how specific you went with the health?
Yeah. So with health, for example, at the end of last year, I wrote down I want to start a new sport, most likely Muay Thai, which was at the time the thing I was flirting with. And if it goes well, I'll aim to do a fight by the end of the year. I ended up doing it
At
in
the end of the quarter.
Q1. But that was what I wrote down. I was like, I want to do a fight by the end of the year to test myself in a new capacity. I also had a running goal in there, but I said I'm going to first see if my knees handle it. That's all as far as I could get. But that was what I really wanted to do is explore a new avenue with my physical health, because I felt like I'd sort of complete the chapter with bodybuilding. And then when it comes to with family, I wrote. Because obviously I knew that I was expecting a girl at the time, so I wrote, I want to spend this much time. I want to work in this specific fashion. I'm going to hire an office so that I can work separately. I'm going to aim to be at home for lunch. I'm going to aim to do this X, Y, Z. Just trying to really be specific with how I want to live when my daughter arrives. Obviously, that could all go out the window.
Yeah.
But I think the more intention you have going into it, it just creates that awareness to think, okay, where's the gap? And what could I improve on when I'm in the moment? Because obviously there's going to be lots of elements that are out of your control.
Yeah.
So it is a level of specificity. And I think the area that I think those two come quite naturally to me. With business, I find that harder because I feel like there's more options. Like there's more things you could do. And I think there's more opportunities for shiny objects. So it's really asking yourself, well, if I want to achieve this level of business, what are the pros and cons? And it's always a pros and cons question. It's always like, well, what does this take away from my other two areas? If I do this, will that pull away from my relationships? If I do this, will that reduce my autonomy, which I really value?
Do you think that, you said that with business, there's more opportunities, there's more shiny pennies effectively. But with the other two, there aren't. Is that because there aren't, or is that because, for example, the impression that you have of how you're supposed to live your life through society's expectations that's been put on you is to say, well, I'm supposed to, have a great relationship with my partner, etc. I want to be at home with my kid, etc. I think it's really always very interesting to kind of split out how much of it has been expectation that's been put on us and that we have then taken on, and how much of it is something that we really, really want. And actually, is there even a difference? Like, can we separate those two things out? If someone had put an expectation on me that, like some animals do, you leave your young and then they fend for themselves, or the mother looks after the young, the father doesn't look after the young, would that then impact on the thoughts that we're having about what we want to do with our lives?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know the answer to that one.
To move away from that, I think that your point is completely correct. Is the questions we ask ourselves determine our lives, and I think that the challenge that a lot of people have is that they just don't have the time, the brain space, another great word, the brain space to ask themselves these questions. And because they don't, part of the reason they don't have the brain space to answer these questions, this is my thought process, is because they have been told that everybody wants security and freedom. Two things that everybody wants. The way that they get security and freedom is by saying, well, I need financial freedom. And the way that a lot of people get that is through a job. But the job requires that we're going to make you work in this company and pay you just enough that you stay here. And we're going to make you work as hard as possible. The whole point of it is we're trying to get as much from you as possible. So you do that, and then in the evening when you come home, you've got to spend time with your daughter or your partner. And the weekends, you're going to spend time with your parents or your parents-in-law, or whatever it might be, your friends, if you even get time to do that. So where's the time to ask ourselves these questions, to do this kind of exercises? And I think one of the things that I feel very, very blessed, I honestly, I put this in my gratitude journal so often, is that I can decide what day I want to spend thinking about my own stuff. So one of the things that we do every quarter, my wife and I, is we rebalance our assets. This is financial assets, but we do it on a Friday because we can. Everyone else has to do it on a Saturday. Well, no, not on a Saturday morning, because you probably have to take your kids to swimming or something. Not on a Saturday afternoon because you've got to go to your mum's house for dinner, for lunch or something. So we can just do it during work hours effectively. And I think that that has been a really amazing thing that this move, the path that I've taken, the entrepreneurship path, has allowed me the time to be able to do what I want to do. And one of those things that I want to do is ask myself more questions to get more answers. You and I both know that you ask yourself better questions, you'll get
Yeah.
better answers.
There's a couple of things like, because I don't think it's limited only to entrepreneurs. I think you can definitely get that working in a company. It just depends which company.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I think if a company's based on having more autonomy and more flexibility on the schedule, that can completely be achieved. Like RNT is a great example of that, where we give our team a lot of autonomy as long as, of course, the work needs to be done. So I think it depends on the company. I don't think it's only for entrepreneurs. But I don't know if I agree with the fact that you said people don't have the time, because I think that's an element of people. I don't think people want to explore these questions. I think that's the bigger one. Because when you get into that rut of the hedonic treadmill of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, kids on the weekend, your 10 years go by very quickly. You turn 40, then you're 50, then you're 60, and you never thought about it. And you finish life like that. And often you don't want to make those changes because you've created a lot of lifestyle overheads. You're stuck in a rut. You don't even want to change because it means probably making some hard decisions with your work, with your relationships, and all these things. And I think that's the bigger problem. And I think if we just circle it back to where we started on talking about growth and investment, I think when you invest in your health and you invest in your wealth and you invest in your relationships, you start automatically asking these questions because now you've made an investment. And I think it needs to be a financial investment. If you make a financial investment in your wealth, you're going to start questioning your eating habits. You're going to start questioning your social habits. You make an financial investment into your wealth, whether it be through property investing, like yourself. You're going to question how you spend in other areas. Like you might cut down on spending pointless money on the weekend and actually put it into an investment fund or a property or whatever. I think when you start investing, you ask yourself these bigger questions and you go on that path of growth.
Yeah.
And then you meet fellow like-minded people who are also on a similar path.
And one of the things I think that investing brings with it as well, this is like inherent in investing, is a long-term mindset. Because you realize, when we're investing, we're not trying to become millionaires overnight. People are trying to become millionaires overnight, but when we're investing, we're saying we know it's going to be a long journey. As well as that, I think it's this idea of delayed gratification, which is about, have you seen that video about the marshmallow test?
Yeah.
So if you haven't, go to YouTube and type in the marshmallow test and you'll see this amazing video. And ultimately what it proves is that a little bit of pain today is going to lead to more benefit in the future. And that's what all investments about. I mean, when I was on the RNT journey, there was times where I was like, I'm hungry. And it's really easy for me to reach for any junk food around me. But I have to say, there's a little bit of pain right now. But I know that the reward in the future is going to be great. And I'm skipping ahead of myself. But one of the things I was thinking about coming here, so that I've just been abroad for 3 months. And there was a part of me that, thought, oh, well, is my physique going to deteriorate? And I remember seeing back when I first started with RNT, you, Minil, some of these people that had been training for a number of years, that their physique it just stays there. It just doesn't go away really. And one of the things that I realized when I came back was like, oh my God, like my physique's, yes, of course I've lost a bit of fat and a little bit of muscle or whatever, but it's still there. And I think that is the eighth wonder of the world now, compound interest. That is compounding the fact that I've been going to the gym 3-4 times a week for X number of years now. How many years has it been? I don't know, 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, 5 years.
Every single year, every single week, every month, going to the gym. And I say going to the gym, but I mean like the whole package that RNT gives you, doing all those things, just getting my steps in as well. Things like that, little habits that have helped me to maintain where I am. When we were in Mexico just now, we were like, oh, we need to get our steps in. Now it's great that apps like Garmin and Vitality and all these apps have made it like a fun thing to do as well. Let's get our steps in, and I'm so glad that getting our steps in is part of our vocabulary. But I think that it's definitely a case that the delayed gratification goes hand in hand with compound interest, with building and realizing that that's why a little bit of pain today leads to much more benefit in the future, because you can compound, whether it's your money or whether it's your physique or your relationship, whatever it is, you can compound that over a number of years to become much, much bigger than it is today.
Well, I want to touch on the point where you mentioned that you've now got to a point where you've got that physique.
Mhm.
You know, you've got that physique. Um, how did you transition from like fad diets, the odd training program, getting ready for summer, then losing it all in the winter, to now having something where you're in shape year round? But what was the transition period from going from that mindset to now living that lifestyle
Yeah.
solution where you've kind of crystallized it? You've crystallized your gains and you've cashed out with big rewards. You know, bring it back to
Nice.
the investment analogy. You spent so long depositing the pennies, you're now reaping the rewards. You're on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that transition in thinking, and what were some of the key sort of step changes you found to get you to that point?
I think the first thing to say is that I was never really a fad diet type person because I'm not like a shiny penny person. However, what I was, every time I wanted to get fit, because I didn't know, I didn't have the knowledge, I just thought, well, the way to do it is to starve myself. So I was like, let's just starve myself. Let's just eat less. And obviously, you know what happens when you starve yourself, you get hungry and then you eat all the wrong things. So that's where I started. What At that time, I also remember, and people that are listening to this who are on early in their journey, they'll also be thinking exactly this. I remember thinking to myself, when am I going to get to the place where I don't have to weigh my food? Because I can't live my life like this. I can't live my life weighing out that many grams of this many grams. I mean, I know you do sometimes, but I can't do that all the time. And I did it very strictly for about 2 years. I weighed everything. I ate chicken and rice for 2 years. My wife, we did it together, but about a year in, she was like, "Oh, I'm done with this. You know, I want to cook my own meals and whatever." And she used to cook her own meals, and I used to measure all my stuff out. And then eventually, like, I can't be bothered to do my own thing. So I started trying her thing. And it was this weird place where I went from being very, very, very structured to having some structure. So having, knowing that I need this much protein. And if I'm going to have chicken, it's going to be 150 grams. And if I'm going to have rice, it's going to be 40 grams or whatever it might be. But not having so much structure that I felt tied by it. And so I think that's really, really important, that saying that that's where I started by thinking, when am I actually going to be there? And I got there without even realizing, I just carried on doing the steps. And eventually I got to a place where, and now, I think I'm in a place where I say to all of my friends, and they're really, really jealous. I was like, I can eat anything I want. I told you this last time we did a podcast. I can eat anything I want. I eat crisps, chocolates, ice creams, anything I feel like eating, I will eat. The difference is I don't feel like eating them often because, I don't want to put things into my body that are not good for me. Um, the second thing is that I'm much more aware of how I'm feeling with food. So I'm like, oh, I've eaten that. Oh, I feel a bit like this. Maybe I shouldn't be eating that. So there's a nice little feedback loop. Whereas before, the feedback loop was there, but I was never aware of it. So I'd eat something and I'd feel bloated and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, this is just how I feel. But I'd never joined those dots together. So I think that is, it's been an amazing journey to get to the place where I can just, I can't even remember what the words I used to be. But basically, I can just be flexible. I can do whatever I feel like doing. And if I feel like eating it, intuitive eating, that's what you used to call it. Intuitive eating. I feel like I'm now an intuitive eater. I can eat what I want, when I want. And I know that I get the right balance in. And what were the sort of keys that you, to get there? One is steps. I mean, it's the 5-step process that you have, right? So steps, getting steps in is without a doubt the easiest thing you could possibly do, because it doesn't take that much effort, especially once you schedule it into your diary and it's like, okay, cool, this is my routine, I'm doing this. Second one is water. If I get my water in, I don't even feel hungry. If I don't feel hungry, then like I'm good. I'm not going to be packing on those calories. Third thing is, this was the trick that I think someone told me, but it was only after like 3 years later. Someone said, just delay your breakfast. And, if we're trying to get calories in and you have breakfast early in the morning and you start your metabolism, by definition, you're going to get more calories during the day. Whereas if you delay your breakfast and you don't start your metabolism, so I now typically.
It's person dependent, that.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it really works for me.
So it works well.
It works really well for me. I mean, and I don't mean I delay my breakfast until dinner time or anything like that, but I would delay my breakfast till about, I say my breakfast, probably lunch till, I'll have a coffee in the morning, or a decaf coffee. I don't drink coffee anymore. Decaf coffee, and then I probably have breakfast around 12:30.
Yeah.
Lunch, obviously. And then I have a second meal in the evening. But because I'm only having like 2 meals and maybe a snack, I can really eat anything that I want to. And I think that is, for me at least, it's just been about getting used to that. Initially, I was like, oh, I'm quite hungry. But just like with anything, you get used to things. And I've just got used to that way of
There's a
living.
couple of big takeaways there. One is the fact that you have to start with structure. You have to start with it
Totally.
strict and structure. I think that's something you can't get. You can't skip the gears there. You can't go from a set meal plan to flexible intuitive eating in 3 months. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. You did two years of strict eating because you were learning the feedback mechanisms. You were learning the the sort of the awareness, how different foods make you feel. And the second thing is there's a lot of trial and error. Like you found your thing, which is eat breakfast at 12, have a snack in the afternoon maybe, and you have a dinner, big dinner. That's working well for you, but you've probably gone through multiple different variations of it.
Mm.
And I think an important lesson for people to figure out is you got to invest those early years to reap the rewards later on,
Uh,
to be able to go intuitively, flexible, make it effortless. Basically, the dream reward that everyone's after.
It's so true, and I think that the problem that we have in the fitness industry, I think, is that because of these fad diets that are like, oh, get a six pack in 6 weeks, everyone expects those results in 6 weeks. And if you put out a program that's going to be 2 years long, everyone's like, oh, it's too long, it's too far away. And this is the whole thing about investing. You've got to say, right, cool, well, I'm going to commit for this period of time. And from what I've seen, if you certainly with RNT, if you commit for a longer period of time, say a year, then you're much more likely to stick with those results because you've given yourself time for those habits to bed in. You've given yourself time to test out those ways of doing things and find the one that works for you. If you quit after 3 months or 6 months, you haven't given yourself time. So you may have lost the weight initially, but you're going to put it back on because you just don't have those habits ingrained enough. And I think that was definitely one of my takeaways. Initially, when I started doing it, and I did it, like I said, for 2 years, I was like, I'm never going to get off this. Like, how can I? Because I'm not going to be okay. The reason why I'm staying fit and healthy and have a six pack is because I'm on the program. And my wife helped me to kind of like wean off that and go, oh, well, now I don't need to measure my food and I can still be okay.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the investment mindset, and if we just use the same analogy for wealth, how do you break out of the I don't have enough to invest in my wealth right now? For anyone really listening, it's
Yeah,
not just for businesses or anything like that. This is for everyone.
everyone. Yeah.
How do you break out of the I don't have enough right now, or I'll do it later? What's the investment mindset you need to approach your wealth, and why is it even important?
Really amazing question. I think that managing money is a skill. And the fact is that people who manage their money well, they get more money. And people who don't manage their money well don't get more money. What actually happens is that the people who manage their money poorly and the people who manage their money well, the money flows from the people who manage their money poorly to the people that manage their money well. So when we say, I don't have enough to invest right now, what we need to start with is simple money management and saying, right, well, I'm going to make sure that, if I earn X pounds, say I earn £100, I'm going to put £1 away. And that ability for you to control yourself and say, I'm going to put £1 away, whether it's £100 or £1,000 or £100,000, you take your percentage and you put that money away for investment. The next thing then to think about is, well, where am I going to invest it? And there's loads of asset classes. And initially, when I first started with RNT, I was solely investing in property, and I thought property was the best thing since sliced bread. As I've grown in my investment journey, and I've realized actually, there's a multitude of asset classes, and actually, the best way to do this is to invest across all of them. So what I do now is I invest across multiple asset classes, different percentages, and I realize that based on my attitude to risk, I really want the majority of my wealth to be in property and then in the stock market as well. And more of the reason why it's in the stock market is because it's efficient to do it through pensions and ISAs and things like that. So it's tax efficient, but both of those two. And then, yes, I'll have some money in things like cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. Because although they're very, very high risk, I'm not putting loads of money in it. I'm putting a bit of money in it. But because they're high risk, they're also high reward. And that means that it might go, let's say I have £1,000 in it. It could go down to zero and I have to accept that I'm going to lose £1,000. But it could also go up to 100,000 or 1 million or wherever it's going to go to. And when you do a weighted average, it's like, well, it makes no sense for you to not do that. So even if you have £100 and you say, instead of putting £1,000 in it, I have £100 to invest, you say, great, I'm going to put some of it in property and some of it in stocks and some of it in the crypto market.
What about the question of like, I've only got £100. What's the point in even doing it?
Yeah, I again
I might as well just spend it on the weekend.
going back to money management is a habit. It's a way of life. It's the same with health, isn't it? It's like, oh well, I'm already fat now. There's no point in me trying to get a six pack.
What does money management even mean?
It means the ability to. I mean, ultimately, for me at least, it means the ability to control your spending. I've never been a massive spender. I've never been someone that's like, oh, I want this, I want this. I mean, maybe it's wrong to say, but things don't. Asking myself those deeper questions, I realize that things don't really make me happy.
Mm.
Spending time with people that share my love of asking those questions is the thing that really floats my boat. So on that basis, I'm like, well, there's no point in buying more stuff. And I think the other thing, and going a bit deeper spiritually, is this idea of detachment. We're all going to die at some point. We don't know whether it's going to be tomorrow or in 10 years from now or in 100 years from now, but we are going to die. So it's like, well, there's no point in buying more stuff because I can't take it with me. When I get to, the door that I have to walk through, there's going to be a dustbin there with loads of stuff, other people's stuff, and I'm going to have to put my stuff in that dustbin as well.
But isn't the argument sometimes you hear of like, because you can't take it with you, you may as well just spend it now?
Yeah. So I think, have you heard of that saying, that discipline buys freedom?
Yeah.
So for me, that is what it comes down to. It's like having the discipline to manage my money and to invest my money. That delayed gratification says that if I do that now, then in the future I'll have freedom. Now it sounds like, oh, but in future, God knows when that's coming. And I didn't know when that was coming either. But here I am sitting here. I've started investing when I was in 2016 or something like that, 2015. So not that long ago, 5-7 years ago. And in 5-7 years, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm in a position now where I don't have to work and the income gets paid in every single month. And I've invested in tangible assets that are going up in value. So all of these benefits all came because back then I had the foresight and the discipline to say, I'm not going to spend all my money. I'm going to invest that money instead.
Interestingly, I think discipline equals freedom is not just the future state freedom, but I think it's also a present state freedom. When you create discipline and structure in your life, you experience the freedom that you want, especially if the discipline is rooted in the values that you live. You discipline your life in a value-driven way, you can experience that freedom and success almost on a daily basis, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, that is a really good point, actually. And I think especially, I mean, if you just think about time discipline, if you have X number of hours to use and you've got, these three areas, health, wealth, and your relationship, it's like, well, where do I spend my time? If you discipline yourself, you can get the most from all of them. If you don't discipline yourself and you spend too much time in your relationship, for example, and you don't get any time on the rest of it, it's not going to work out, or vice versa in any other area of your life.
How do you speak to people who are struggling with money management? What's some of the questions to ask yourself?
I think that most people, go back to my earlier point, most people want security. That's the first thing. That's the first rung on the ladder. Once they've achieved security, then they look for freedom. And that point around they want security, it all comes down to, what does security mean? What I realized is that security is not a number, or put it a different way, it's not the same number for everybody. I could have £100 million and I might not still be secure, but I could have £100. A different person have £100 and they feel totally secure. So it's a mindset more than anything else. I have somebody that I work with. They run a bank. They have a lot of money. And I said to him the other day, I said, why do you do this? Because, you wake up early, you spend all the time at work and you work at this big bank and you have loads of stress. And he said, I just want ultimate security. And I was like, but you
Really?
have so much money. For anybody else, they'd go, are you kidding me? Like, that's more than enough money. But it's just a mindset at the end of the day. And I just believe that first thing you've got to do is figure out what is the amount that will allow you to achieve security. And then the next thing from there is to say, well, now how am I going to get the freedom that I want? But those are the two stages. I think.
Interestingly enough, that security number is usually way lower than people think it is.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, it's like, well, what does security mean to you? That's the first question.
Yeah.
Go back to questions. It's like, well, what does security mean to you? And I remember when I first started in property, the reason why I started in property is because I had an insecurity about money. I didn't feel like I had enough money and I wanted to get more money. And after I started making some money, I realized like I still feel insecure. And I asked myself this question. I thought, am I ever going to feel secure? Like, is this just the burden that I've got to bear? Am I ever going to feel secure? And until someone that I know very well said to me, these are amazing words for from a financial investment perspective, and maybe we can apply it for health as well. I said, "What does security mean to you?" And he says two things, really simple. You own your own home, and you own your income stream. So if you own your own home, you can live wherever you want. So you can live there without anybody telling you that you can't live there. So you're secure in your home, and you secure your income stream. Let's say, for example, you own a number of properties that pays you income that covers your costs, not your expenditure, your costs, which might be say £2,000 a month. Now you know that whatever happens, if the pandemic comes and you get fired, it doesn't matter. You've got your £2,000 a month coming in every single month. You've got your house to live in. You can just sit in your house and do whatever you want to do until it rolls itself over. And as I started to think about that, the more I started to think about that, I was like, wow, do you know what? Like that's probably the goal that I've been seeking this entire time, but I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't think about what it is. And for me, anyway, that's the wrong. That's the base wrong. It's when I say you own your own home, I mean like you have no mortgage, you paid it all off. And when I say you own your income stream, I mean whether that is properties, so you own the property outright, or whether it's a business or something like that. If it is a business, though, it has to be a business that is a recurring income business, a cash flow business, not a profit orientated business. If it's a profit oriented business where you have to go out every single month and do sales, well, if the pandemic hits, for example, and you can't do more sales, you're not going to bring in the income anymore. So I think that is something that really helped me to identify exactly what is security. What does that mean for me? And I think from there, it's been a better journey.
What's your thoughts on the whole rent versus ownership argument? I bring it up just because you mentioned own your own home. I
Yeah.
know in the UK we're very much own your own home, invest in property, but in the US, owning your own home is almost a bit of a
Yeah. Likewise in Europe. Likewise
yeah,
in
in
Europe.
Europe as well, right? It's
Yeah. I
a bit of
think
a strange one.
I think that it all comes down to your values and your attitude to risk. And going back to our earlier conversation, societal pressures that you have adopted. And I think for me, um, owning my own home gives me that security. It may not do that for everybody. And if you don't need to own your own home to give you that security, then don't own your own home. Like it's fine. I think the beauty of what we're doing is that everyone can live their own life. You can be who you want to be. Not everyone has to follow the same direction. However, what everyone does need, I think, going back to this idea, is everyone does need the security. Now, it might take you £10 to get secure. If you feel secure after you've got £10 in your pocket, fantastic. You don't need to work on that anymore. But everyone needs security, then they need freedom. And if you have that security and the freedom, then you can go away and live the life that you want to live. But I don't have any grudge against anybody that says, "Oh, you don't need to own your own home." Don't own your own home then. That's your right.
Yeah. When you said you spread your investments across different classes, you go property first, then you stock market, and then you have your cryptocurrency
Yeah.
element. But how do you scour through the minefield of what you should actually do in each of those,
Yeah.
especially like the first two? Like how do you know how do you even start? But where do you even start with, like for example, like property?
I think it's the same answer for how do you start anything? How do you start Muay Thai? How do you start in the world of fitness? You go and find somebody that's doing it already. You go and read up, whether it's books, articles, etc. The easiest way for people in our generation now is to go either go into YouTube and find somebody on there, or go onto Instagram, and you'll find loads of people that are doing that. You just follow the ones that you like, and before you know it, with like subconsciously almost, without you even knowing, as you're scrolling, that information is going into
Mm.
you. And as a result, I think that that's probably the best way to start. You start to understand more about it. Now, just to be clear, I wouldn't call myself an expert. So I'm an expert in property, but I'm not an expert in cryptocurrency or in the stock market and whatever. And so my game is I'm going to do the best that I can in property, and I'm going to do the best that I can in property, and then the other ones I'm just going to go low risk. So, for example, when I do my cryptocurrencies, I'm not looking at the ones that are going to shoot off and go down to zero and whatever. I'm looking at Bitcoin. That's my one. I like that because it's like, well, that's the lowest risk. It's the most well known, etc. I look at the stock market. I'm like, well, funds are good enough for me. I don't need to go and pick my own stocks because I don't know what the hell I'm doing there. And actually, another important thing here is that same with your health journey, you've got to make mistakes. You've
Yeah.
got to make mistakes. And something that, again, I think Akash Desai taught me this, was that mistakes are just stepping stones on the path to success. And I didn't realize that because, I've been brought up in the same school system that the rest of us have, where if you make a mistake, that's bad. And if you get something right, that's good. But actually, if you make the mistake, you learn something that's wrong and you then can learn the right way of doing it and you can form your own path that way. So I think that one thing that I will say to people is when you're young, as in under 50, you have the ability to make mistakes and recover from those mistakes. So let's say, for example, I invest in a property. It cost me £50,000 when I'm 25 and I lose it. The whole thing goes to pot and I lose all the money. Sounds like a really bad thing, but I can recover from that. And by the time I retire, I probably won't even remember that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I start doing that when I'm 60 and I lose it, that's a huge amount of money for me to lose when I'm 60. So I think it's all about realizing that you have to make mistakes on your route to success, and bringing it back to your health journey as well. As you said, I tried out loads of things that didn't work for me, but those are the things that made me get to the thing that did work for me. And if I hadn't tried those things, if I just sat here and did nothing, then I wouldn't have the six pack.
What is having the six pack and having that foundation of health that you've built? How does that translate and help you in your wealth journey?
I think the first thing is structure. Having a structure that we've discovered through RNT, having a structure to my day and being able to then structure my life, my investments, etc., has been really, really pivotal because I've understood that the structure, as we said earlier, it's the structure that buys the freedom. It's the structure that helps me to make sure that I don't miss things. So, for example, I knew that when I was on the RNT program fully, I was going for a walk between this time and this time, and I'd wake up and I'd go for the walk, and that's just what I did. So I didn't have to think about it. And I remember a while ago, you've stopped talking about it so much, but you used to talk about what was it? Mental units. What were they called?
Mental energy units.
Mental energy units. Yeah.
MEUs.
I love those mental energy units. And it's like, well, just get it done first thing in the morning because then you don't have to worry about it. So I think it's realizing that, so that for me, it was the health habits, if you like, gave me the structure to succeed in my health journey. And all I needed to do with my finance journey was say, well, what are my finance habits that are also going to help me do the same sort of level of success there as well? So that was definitely it. I think even now when I think about it, every single day, 4:30, I go for a walk. Everybody knows this. My whole team knows this. If I want to book meetings into my diary, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, it's going to be between 4:30 and 6:30 because those are the times when I'm walking. So I can talk to people. There's no point in me talking to somebody at 9 o'clock in the morning when I'm like fully fresh and bright, and that's when I do my work. I'm in that way. I like to do my I call it my brain work. My brain work between I don't start work till 10, but from 10 till 12, that's when I like to do my brain work. And then another lot of work between 1:30 and 3:30, 1:30 and 4:30, and then depending on whether we're in the summer or the winter, between 3:30 and 4:30 at some point, I go for a walk for usually an hour and a half. I leave a 2-hour block, and that means that I get my steps in. So it's not only do I get my steps in, I also get to go outside, be in the fresh air. I also get to move, and finally I get to get away from my desk, have that thinking space. Sometimes I don't know whether you do this. This is going to sound really weird to people, but I put my headphones in and I go for a walk with my headphones in, no music playing. And I know you do like
I
nature
I do that a lot. Yeah, yeah.
with or without your headphones.
Yeah, I put it on. I put the headphones in, but nothing's playing.
I put the headphones in, nothing's playing. I don't know why. It just kind of mutes out the background noise, but it makes me feel like I'm in my head now,
And no one's going to distract you.
and now I can ask myself those questions and things like that. So I think my health journey has been pivotal. I still do the steps. I still do my water. You'll see my water bottle right here. I still go to the gym. I still make sure that I eat healthy. And like I said, I eat anything that I want, but in moderation. And I definitely don't want to eat some of the things that I used to eat. I think one of the other really important things, as I've been on holiday for a while now, last couple of weeks, is learning how to handle holidays, learning how to handle weddings and occasions, events, birthday parties, etc. And I remember when I first started going, I was really scared of going. In fact, I went to a networking event where we, Lifestyle Property People, my company, was the sponsor of this event, and it was a sit-down dinner, and I brought my Tupperware, and I was having a Chinese food or Thai food or something like that, and what came out as a 3-course meal was Thai food, and I was like, but I have to eat mine. I can't eat that one, and everyone thought I was crazy because I'd hidden it under my seat. But transitioning from that to, okay, well, I can do it, but I just need to buffer a little bit if I want to. And now that buffering is intuitive. I don't even need to think about it. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going out tonight. So, yeah.
What's the why that anchors it? Like, what makes you think, why don't I just go back to eating shit and not moving around? Like, what keeps that?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. You've heard this a million times. Everyone who's listening to this podcast will have heard this as well. Health is wealth. 100% believe it. 100% believe it. Health is wealth. You say it all the time. Health is the vehicle. Physical is the vehicle, is what you say. But it's ultimately it's health that anchors everything. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so for me, it was really important to make sure that I had my health. Just to share a little bit more information, I was thinking about this just 2-3 days ago. We're doing some inheritance tax planning at the moment. One of the questions they ask you is, what age did your parents pass away, or are they still alive? And some of my grandparents, grandparents passed away a little bit younger, and of heart attacks and the things that are quite common in kind of like Asian lifestyle, heart attacks, strokes, that kind of thing. And they go hand in hand with probably just one is stress, of course, but the other one is like a lack of understanding of nutrition. And so I just don't want to be in that place where my life is cut short because I didn't have that understanding of nutrition. So once I've got it, I don't want to lose it now. And I don't know if you remember, but one of the things that was really, it meant a lot to me when I had achieved my my six pack was going out and just wearing a t-shirt. And it sounds like such a tiny, tiny thing. For people who wear t-shirts all the time, this is going to mean nothing to them. But I never used to wear a t-shirt because I was always scared about my man boobs, and I was always scared about my, my stomach, and my shape wasn't, the shape that I wanted it to be. But I didn't know how to do anything about it. And just being free to, be myself and wear my t-shirt, and that, I think that's been such a big game changer for me. So I think in all, it just comes down to the health has given me those anchors, those great feelings, and why would I let that go? It is the basis of my entire life.
What are some of the questions that you're grappling with the most right now?
Very good question. I always grapple with the same question. So one is still, who am I? And now that one goes a bit deeper because it's like, well, what do I stand for as well? I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been involved with property, I've been involved with businesses and etc. And I'm like, well, which one of these things am I really leaning towards? This is, no one knows about it. I haven't really told my wife this, actually. I mean, she knows some of this, but I'm still trying to formulate it in my own head. What do I actually stand for? I really stand for, basically, I think, as I said earlier, people should be doing anything that they want to be doing, everything that they want to be doing. In order to do that, they need freedom. To get freedom, they need security. To get security, for me personally, it was financial security. And for a lot of people, it will be financial security. I need to provide for my family, myself, etc. And therefore, it was so important to get that, get those first few properties bought. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about property, and specifically generally investment, but property specifically, because it helped me to get the security, to get the freedom to be able to live the life that I want to live. And I think that what I'm really passionate about is people living the life that they want to live. And what that doesn't mean is, it doesn't mean that everyone's got to live the same life. Everyone can live the life that they want to live. And like you said, we just have to ask ourselves, what is that life? So I think it's one that I'm still kind of trying to shape. What about you?
Do you think you're living the life that you want to live right now?
Well, Akash, I've just been to Valencia for the last 3 months. I've been to Mexico for the last month. I'm going to Turkey on Thursday.
I was basically just trying to pull that out of you.
It's about asking yourself, like, what do you want? And, there are always pros and cons. I mean, one of the things I realized, I was sharing with one of my friends, was being in Mexico was not, I wouldn't say difficult, because I've got a team that are doing their work, but put it this way, I set myself, I've never done this in my life. I'm about to admit something really big to you. I set myself 10 things to do in March. I set myself 10 things to do every single month. I set myself 10 things to do in March. I got 4 of them done. And it was a big thing for me because I asked myself the question, why did I get 4 of them done? Okay, well, I got 4 of them done because I was on holiday for the whole of the month. So if I was on holiday, I couldn't get them done. But why did I even set myself those 10 things if I knew I was going to be on holiday? And I said, well, I knew that my team were there, and so they were going to do a lot of the work. And one of the things I am realizing, I'm learning myself, is like, whilst the team can do their work, as soon as they get stuck, they're going to come to me. and I need to be there to be able to answer their questions and things like that. So I think there's definitely been some learnings, and there've been some pros and cons, but this is the journey that we're on, and we're here for the experience, basically.
Yeah. You asked me like, what am
Yeah.
I thinking about? And actually, funny enough, I'm actually thinking a big question I'm thinking about. There's two. One is, if I was to do a TED talk, what would it be on? I still don't really have an answer yet. It's like I keep thinking.
Is that the same as what would your next book be? What's the
Nah,
real?
it's different because what the next book be could be, it could be anything, right? It could be a
Okay.
book about this, book about that, book about this. I guess you could say the same about TED talks. But
core
it's
of
like,
you.
what if I was to do a TED talk, just one TED talk? What would that be? And I don't really have an answer yet. I'm trying to grapple with that question because I think it kind of links to the who am I question. It links to like, what do I stand for?
Yeah.
And the other question I'm thinking about is like, what is the next stage of my career? In that I'm doing what I'm doing right now, but I'm only 30, and what is the next stage? I think I'm starting to see how different things you do in your career are seasonal. I have my personal training life and season when I was
Yeah.
on the gym floor as a personal trainer, doing a lot more heavily involved in coaching, and then I've had the last sort of 5 years running RNT, and it's not like I have any plans to stop doing that anytime soon. But I'm just thinking, well, what is the next chapter? What is the next stage of my career? And again, I don't have these answers. These questions have come to me in the last couple of weeks, and sometimes they left me a bit frustrated because I don't have answers on them.
Yeah.
But I guess those two questions are quite big, and they're not something that it's not an overnight question or one journaling session. So those are the things I'm kind of grappling the most. And the big one really is the TED talk. It's like, what would I do a TED talk on? Well, it's not going to be weight loss, is it? It's not going to be just that. And then I think about, you've asked me a lot of questions over the years, right? And you've often come to me for advice in various aspects. And it's always been about, outside of obviously RNT, if anything, actually, I'd say you've asked me for more advice outside of RNT related stuff than RNT. And it was Chani who mentioned that to me. She said, like, there's a lot of people around you who are very similar to you in their growth journeys. And they come to you for advice, and it's never about weight loss. And she's like, why don't you just tune into like what are they asking you? What's the commonalities in that? And I thought it was a really good exercise that I'm going to start thinking about, because I think there's something. I said this on I think it was episode 300, but I think what I'm doing now is like a stepping stone for what the big thing really is going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that yet, and I'm still early in that thought process. It's probably been like a few months of thinking of that, and then a few weeks or days thinking about these probably more specific questions, because I think you've evolved quite a lot over the last couple of years, and I think everything does come in seasons, even in your career. And I think I'm learning more as I'm getting older. I think relationships come in seasons, friendships comes in seasons, and there's a time on each, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why I come to you, and I'm sure other people come to you, is because you're a deep thinker. And so you think about things. And because you think about things, you have more answers than people who didn't think about things. So this is round circle back to the start of our conversation, which is, what are the things that you think about? But you think about a lot of things. You ask yourself a lot of questions, and therefore you develop answers for that. I think the other thing, just for the audience that's listening to this, some of those questions that you've asked that you're struggling with, and some of the questions that the audience will be struggling with, one of the things that we have to realize is that we're not going to have the answers today. So if you ask yourself the question, you don't have the answer, it doesn't mean you're failed. That's okay. You have to just learn to be uncomfortable, and that's the way it is. But the fact that you ask yourself that question has got your subconscious brain thinking about the answer, and the answer will come to you at some point in the future. Just don't force it. Just don't rush it. It will come to you. And you know that already, and that's definitely going to happen to you.
Well, that's a big part of it. It's like you want to plant the
seed.
problem and plant the seed in the back of your mind, and then go and do something completely unrelated. And then one day you'll just wake up and be like, oh yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Akash, is for people that are like thinking about getting involved with their health and doing something with their bodies or whatever, why should they start now? The reason why I'm asking you is because there's a lot of people who kind of want to do something.
Yeah.
Same with property. There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, no, I kind of want to invest, but there's always some reason, there's some excuse, whether it's Brexit or the inflation or housing crisis or whatever it is. With health, it'll be the same thing. It'll be like, oh, well, I'm too busy because I've just had a kid, or because I'm, getting married, or my mum's sister's getting married, or whatever it might be. Why should people start now?
I think the faster you start, the faster you can start seeing, you can start living life in the full experience. Because if you are thinking about your health, or you've let your health go, you probably aren't feeling that great. You probably don't feel confident in how you feel, in your appearance. Your energy's low. And it's probably having a repercussions on everything you're doing. You're feeling more busy. You're not doing as well in your career as you want it to be. You're probably not as present with your relationships. You're not probably not enjoying your relationships. You don't feel satisfied in yourself. So all these feelings are just getting delayed, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Or you can take charge now and immediately feel better, look better, perform better, and all of a sudden life just gets so much more fun. I think it gets more exciting. You're growing. You're living life in. I think was it Josh who said you're living life in full color.
Yeah.
And I really loved when I heard that. I was like, that is literally it. It's like
Yeah.
when you're on your health game, you're living life in full color. And I think that's the reason to start now. And I think people need reasons superficially to start now. So like, for example, right now we're recording this end of March, summer's around the corner.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, get ready for your beach holiday. And yes, that's a very superficial driver, but it'll get you going. And then it's really about how do you then
Turn that into a lifestyle.
basically do what you've done
Yeah.
and turn it into a lifelong thing. So I think the reasons that I'll start now are always there. But as humans, we need dopamine hooks to get us excited about something. And it's usually holiday driven, New Year driven, wedding driven, etc. That will help sort of fire up that excitement and motivation.
Well, one of the interesting thoughts that I had yesterday, I was just discussing with somebody else, which I don't know if it applies to health. I'd like your opinion on that. Is in business, one of the realizations I had recently was we're never going to get to the end. So I thought when I started in business, I was like, oh, there's all these problems. We're going to solve the problems, and then it'll be at the end, and that'll be it. We'll be done, and it will all be good from then onwards. And what I've now realized is like, after every problem is going to come, so after every down is going to come an up, and after every down up is going to come a down. And that's just the way that life flows. And that is the eternity. It's like that. So if in problems, there's always going to be problems to solve, I then related that back to relationships. And I was like, I wonder whether in relationships, it's always going to be like that as well. So it's like, yeah, of course you keep getting better, but there's always going to be ups and downs and ups and downs. And the first thing that I thought is, oh my God, there's always going to be ups and downs. And the second thing I thought was, oh, okay, cool. Well, I can just relax now because I'm not trying to get anywhere anymore. This is life. I'm just trying to continue to improve at the pace that I'm trying to continue to improve. And I wonder whether the same is true for health as well.
In that you have ups and downs.
In that you have your ups and downs, but also more importantly, that it's the lifelong journey. So is it?
I think it is a lifelong journey filled with spurts of growth. So, for example, doing a photo shoot drives it faster. Me doing a fight camp for the last 12 weeks has pushed me to a new level. I don't think you can push at that pace non-stop, but I think it's a case of blasting and cruising. But that cruise has got to be maintenance, not a downward spiral, because your health can very quickly unravel and get worse, and you can cause yourself all sorts of problems. Whereas if you just focus on maintenance, which is very easy actually, then you can keep that going. Like, remember, it's hard to build a body. It's easy to maintain it. You can get away with doing 30-40% just to maintain something.
I heard you say that in one of the trailers, like literally just this morning, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's so true. Because like I said,
it goes back to what you said, right?
Yeah, I've been away for 3 months, and it's been completely like I'm here, and I'm still in a great shape.
And I think that's the key with health, is that you go through periods of excitement. You might do a 10K, you might do a marathon, you might do a photo shoot, whatever it is, and then you go through periods of just coasting. But that coasting has got to be the maintenance, and that's completely fine. And that's just part of it, because you're probably rebalancing your priorities. In that time you focus on your business or your career or your relationships, and then you go through another health sprint. At the same time, some people may not enjoy any of those health sprints. I think we're quite wired to like go towards challenges. Yeah. And I think because I think we find growth in that. I personally find a lot of growth in extreme physical pursuits, because it really pushes me mentally in ways that I don't really get from anything else.
But I don't know if it's that we're wired like that, which would imply
or we want to do it.
Well, wired like that implies that we were set like that.
Yeah.
Or that's just the way that we think, or are thinking right now. We're thinking. So my thought process was never like that, and then it got switched, and I was like, oh, hold on. When I'm running a marathon and or even a better example, when I'm trying to lose weight and and I feel hungry, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
This is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. And that was like, oh, right. Okay. It's exactly what you're saying about the challenges. Like, the challenges are a good thing because they help us to grow. But I think that's just a mindset flick. One day someone goes, boom, and you go, oh, right. Yeah.
So do you think, so I think a lot about what what types of people are drawn to that? And do you think it's you either get it or you don't get it, or do you think it's a thing where you grow to become one of those people, or do you think it's a phase in life?
I think in my head right now, my gut tells me that it's a phase in life. And what I mean by that is, so let me explain what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think it's binary. I don't think there are some people that get it and some people don't get it. I think that there are things that happen to people that make them in that moment say, oh yeah, this is what I should do. So for example, with me, it's like if my grandma died and she died of a heart attack, for example, and I go, oh, I should really do something about that. And therefore I start to get healthy. Whether I connect those dots or not, that's the reason why I've done that.
See, that's like the one-off scenarios. I think a lot of people can do one-off things, where they
Yeah.
can do a one-off marathon, a one-off body transformation, a one-off thing.
Mm.
I think the pursuit of like always looking for,
Sure.
not always looking, but
Growth.
regularly looking for growth-inducing challenges, or whether it is related to business or whether it is physically, I think there's something to it where it's like a regular occurrence of like, oh yeah, last year let me get shredded, this year let me do a fight, next year let me do a marathon, or whatever it is.
It's
Like,
like constantly seeking out pain.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because
No.
you know there's so much growth on the other side, because you have to push yourself when your mind is like saying, your body's saying no, 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 and you're just constantly in this wrestle with your mind of like, should I stop? Should I continue? And then you get this sixth sense of enjoyment from the whole experience. You come out the other side, you're like, oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you mean. I think it's definitely an interesting question. Just following on from that then. So one of the challenges that I'm having, you used to talk about people coming to you for advice. At the end of this year, as you know, actually you're running the marathon as well, right? We're both running the marathon together. Great. In my head, I'm like, well, I spent all this time building this muscle, and now I'm going to run this marathon, and I've got to shift from doing 3 gym workouts to doing 3 or 4 runs a week. So therefore, am I going to get my 3 gym workouts? Probably not. Maybe 1, maybe 2 if I'm lucky. And I'm going to be running a lot of the muscle off. Is that something that concerns you? Are you worried about that, or how are you going to manage that?
Well, for my fight, I dropped from training 4 days a week, which I've done for years and years and years, to training twice a week. Training twice a week with minimal volume, running 4 times a week, hitting the bag, then doing pads 3 times a week. You look at that objectively and think, oh, there's risk for muscle loss, strength loss, but lost no muscle,
Amazing.
lost no strength, and performance was up. And I think, but nothing got improved. So I didn't gain muscle. I didn't gain strength. It was just a part of maintenance. You can only improve certain things, but it doesn't mean you don't need to lose it. Again, it's very hard to build it, easy to keep it. 1 or 2 weight training sessions is enough to keep it.
It's mindset at the end of the day, isn't it? It's we get told these things from wherever. Like, for example, if you don't do anything about it, you're going to lose it. Or if you go running, you're going to lose it. At the end of the day, it's about trying to figure out what the facts is. And I think when we look at investing in properties, the same thing. People get told, oh, well, investing is hard and it's difficult and it requires a lot of money in that. And that's exactly why we exist, because we want to inform people that actually you don't need £250,000 to invest in property. You can do it from as little as £60,000, £50,000, £65,000. If you look at investing outside of London, then the next thing that comes up is, oh, but hold on a second, the returns aren't that good. And we say, oh, well, actually, if we look at the facts rather than just looking at what we've been told, the returns outside of London are double, triple what they are in London. So I think it's just about challenging the status quo, challenging the assumptions that we have made about, life.
So to finish this podcast, 2 questions for you. Why should you start now in investing in your wealth and then investing in your health?
So why should you start now? The best time to invest in yourself, in your wealth, was 20 years ago. The second best time to do it is today. What was the second question?
Same question for wealth, health.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing though, isn't it? It's like we all have a clock. And as you said, imagine that you are wearing glasses and they're black and white glasses, and all you can see, everything is black and white. And you have the choice of when you take those off and you can see color. So you decide, well, am I going to do it today, or am I going to do it in 2 years' time or 3 years' time? Well, why would you not want your life to be in full color? Take the glasses off, switch them out, and now you can see everything in full color. So I think the question is, like, when do you want to start living in full color?
Amazing. Where can people find out more about what you do?
Yeah, perfect. So you can find me on Instagram, Shiv_Haria, or on Facebook, Shiv Haria1. But it's lifestylepropertypeople.co.uk, basically.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show.
Perfect. Thanks very much.